Tonight, a turning point in the war that no battlefield commander saw coming. A single Ukrainian jet, a single precision strike, and a Russian-controlled dam that didn't collapse, but Russia's entire defensive plan did. What happened inside that structure didn't just surprise both armies. It rewrote the next phase of the conflict. What looked like a routine precision strike turned into one of the most unexpected chain reactions of the entire war. Ukraine's mission was simple: disable the dam's controls before Russia could unleash a massive, planned flood across dozens of Ukrainian villages. But when the bomb hit, something far stranger and far more dangerous happened beneath the surface. The internal systems Russia had overloaded for weeks suddenly gave way. And the result was chaos. The kind of chaos that only war can accelerate. Tonight, we break down, step by step, how this one mission became the strike that flipped Russia's own strategy against itself. The flight no one saw coming. The night was silent, unusually calm over eastern Ukraine. Fog clung low across the river valley. Russian sentries stood half awake, expecting nothing more than the usual distant artillery echoes. But then, a faint hum. So soft, it blended with the wind. Minutes later, that hum sharpened into a razor-thin whistle. Russian radar operators blinked in confusion as a fast-moving blur skimmed across their screens. Too low, too fast, too precise. Nap of the earth flying, the kind of ultra-low approach only elite pilots dare to attempt. By the time Russian crews scrambled for positions, the jet was already locking onto its target. And at exactly the calculated second, the bomb was released. The bomb hits, but something is wrong. The explosion was clean, contained. It looked exactly like the surgical strike Ukraine planned, a direct hit to the control room. Ukrainian commanders waited for the satellite refresh, expected to see heavy checkmark, a damaged control center, heavy checkmark, a disabled Russian system, heavy checkmark, and nothing more. But what appeared instead stunned every analyst watching the feed. The control room was damaged, but deep inside the structure, cracks were forming, twisting steel, ruptured valves, misaligned floodgates. This wasn't the result of a normal strike. Something inside the dam had already been breaking long before the bomb hit. Russia's hidden flood strategy. For months, Russia had turned this dam into an invisible weapon, controlling water levels to slow Ukrainian troop movement. Flood the lowlands, delay Ukrainian advances. Turn fields into mud-stop armor. Force reroutes by Russia time. But weeks before the strike, Ukrainian intelligence noticed something strange. Russian engineers were lowering the reservoir far more than usual. At first, it looked accidental, until intercepted communications revealed the truth. Russia wasn't preparing to defend. Russia was preparing to flood, a massive, devastating release meant to block an upcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive and drown entire communities in the process. Ukraine's impossible decision. Ukrainian leaders faced a nightmare choice. Do nothing, Russia unleashes a humanitarian disaster. Strike the dam, risk damaging a structure that holds back millions of tons of water. They chose the only option that could prevent catastrophe: a controlled strike. A surgical hit that disables the floodgates without breaking the dam itself. The risk was enormous. One mistake could kill thousands. But there was no time left. Inside the overloaded dam. Here is where the story takes a turn no one on either side expected. Russian engineers, preparing for their massive intentional flood, had pushed the dam's internal systems far beyond safe limits. Valves overloaded. Pressure built up. Gates misaligned. The dam was quietly becoming a ticking time bomb. So when the Ukrainian bomb hit the control room, it didn't cause the instability. It triggered the instability Russia had already created. The internal system snapped like a stressed bone. Russian trenches began to drown. Within minutes, water surged into Russian trenches. Soldiers who had been resting suddenly found themselves waist-deep, scrambling for weapons floating past them. Ammunition crates bobbed away. Mortars tipped over. Sandbags disintegrated into mush. Russian radio traffic exploded with panic. Water rising. 2 meters. Outposts lost. Positions gone. We need evacuation now. The very weapon Russia built, had turned on them. The drones watching from above. Ukraine had planned everything, and drones were already circling overhead long before the strike. Through their cameras, commanders watched the chaos unfold in real time. Flooded trenches, stranded soldiers, vehicles sinking into mud, artillery positions collapsing. It took only seconds for Ukraine to understand. This was their moment. New openings, new pathways, a window of advantage that might last only minutes, but was too valuable to ignore. Ukraine targets the weak points. Coordinates came rushing in. Russian units trapped on small high-ground islands. APCs half-submerged. Supply lines cut off. Artillery stranded with no room to maneuver. Ukrainian artillery struck with surgical precision. Drone-guided mortars landed on immobilized vehicles. Anti-armor drones dove down on tank turrets that could no longer turn. Russia didn't just lose positions, it lost the ability to defend them. Russia's most chaotic retreat in months. Drone footage later showed a scene bordering on collapse. Soldiers abandoning rifles. Commanders waving their arms in panic. Vehicles tipping in the mud. Entire units splitting in opposite directions as water filled the trenches behind them. One viral clip showed a Russian soldier throwing his rifle onto a floating board and trying to swim across a flooded position. Nothing was coordinated. Nothing was controlled. The water, Russia's own weapon, was now their enemy. The water shield collapses. Russia's defensive water belt, the system that had blocked Ukrainian progress for months, was gone. For the first time in weeks, the battlefield terrain shifted in Ukraine's favor. Paths that were once impossible became open. Flooded lowlands softened Russian defenses just enough for Ukrainian infantry to move. The natural barrier Russia relied on vanished in hours. Armored breakthrough. With drones guiding them, Ukrainian armored units pushed forward through the newly opened gaps. Some positions were abandoned. Others held only confused, knee-deep troops with no mobility. Ukrainian forces secured footholds behind Russia's first defensive layer, territory that had been unreachable for months. It was the kind of breakthrough commanders dream of, but rarely get. Russia tries to control the narrative. Russian state media went into emergency mode. Anchors claimed Ukraine had endangered civilians, framing the strike as irresponsible and dangerous. But there was one problem. The evidence online told a different story. Satellite photos, drone videos, eyewitness reports, all showed the same truth. The dam was still standing. No massive flood. No collapsed structure. Only Russia's defensive plan had collapsed. The Kremlin's backlash begins. Within hours, Russian soldiers posted angry videos from the flooded trenches. Bloggers demanded answers. Who overloaded the dam? Why were troops positioned below a stress structure? Why was the reservoir pressure raised beyond safety? Analysts pointed out the obvious. Russia had turned a civilian structure into a weapon, without understanding how unstable it had become. Inside the Kremlin, frustration grew. Nothing had gone according to plan. Ukraine's strategic victory. Ukraine gained more than territory, they gained momentum. Heavy checkmark, no massive humanitarian disaster. Heavy checkmark, no uncontrolled flood. Heavy checkmark, Russian defenses broken. Heavy checkmark, new ground captured. Heavy checkmark, morale boosted. And most importantly, Ukraine proved that intelligence, timing, and precision can outmatch brute force. The moment that changed the war. Rachel Maddow later put it in simple words. One jet, one bomb, one dam, and an entire strategy flipped on its head. In war, as in life, sometimes the smallest cracks create the biggest breaks. The Ukrainian strike didn't destroy the dam, but it destroyed the illusion of Russian control. And tonight, the battlefield looks very different than it did just 24 hours earlier. More updates, more investigations, more turning points, coming soon.